have a happy a marriage, happy relationship, whatever your goals are. I want to lose weight, again, not just money, but everything. And then the very next thought for most people is, but I don't think I can do it because, right? And then dot, dot, dot. And then you just fill in the blank.
Today, we're talking about the seven-figure life, how to leverage four focus factors that will bring more wealth and happiness. And I have a really amazing guest joining me today, Noah St. John. So, give him his official introduction here. He's known as Dr. Noah St. John, the father of Afformations and the mental health coach to the stars. He's the author of 24 books, including his new book, The Seven Figure Expert, Your Ultimate Guide to a Life of More Impact, Influence, and Financial Freedom, which we will make sure you know how to get a copy of. He's worked with Hollywood celebrities, eight-figure company CEOs, professional athletes. Noah's famous for helping people make more in just 12 weeks than they made in the last 12 months while winning their lives back. Well, Noah, this has been a long time coming. I am so glad you're here today.
Great to finally be here.
For those maybe one people in the millions who listen to the show who haven't met you before and don't know of your work, you kind of like started with Afformations, which was all about like creating a new dialogue in your mind. And you got very well known for that. Now you're talking about the seven-figure expert.
Mhm.
And one of your claims to fame is that you help people make more money in 12 weeks than they've made in the last 12 months. Like, let's just jump right in with that one. Like, how do you do that?
How do I do that? Well, it's my magic wand. That's what I
Yes.
have. And unicorn dust, it's actually really awesome. No, that's not true. All right. So, what we do is, and yeah, I've been doing this for quite a long time. I started in 1997 in a 300 square foot basement apartment with $800 and a book on HTML. So, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know how to run a successful business. I had no money, no marketing, no sales, no business experience. The only funnels back then was funnel cake. So, there wasn't any of the tools or amazing things that we have today. But I just really had a dream to help people, to make a difference, to, as Steve Jobs put it, put a dent in the universe. So, I realized the reason I started my company, successclinic.com, way back then in the 90s, was I discovered these methodologies, these systems, formulas that really were missing in the traditional success literature that I'd been studying for, well over 20 years. And so I decided to, publish my first book back in 1998, which was entitled Permission to Succeed. And then, of course, Afformations, as you mentioned. One of the things that I learned over the years of coaching so many people, as you mentioned, seven, eight-figure CEOs, coaches, consultants, course creators, authors, health professionals, chiropractors, network marketers, affiliate marketers, realtors, I mean, just dozens and dozens of industries, is I saw that my clients were really getting what we like to call hockey stick growth, right? So you're going along like this, kind of, and you're working really hard, maybe, working in, putting a lot of hours in, but you're not seeing that growth, right? You're hitting that income ceiling. And so when people started to put my methods in place, they got that hockey stick, which is like going whoop, you just like right through the roof in a very short amount of time. So I really was able to boil it down to some very simple processes and methods and strategies that really anybody can use as long as they, take action with it. And it really boils down to these two basic ideas, which is inner game and outer game. Now, when we look at any human endeavor, there are always those two components, the inner component and the outer component. We just like to say inner game and outer game. So, inner game is everything that happens between your ears that you can't see directly, but it affects everything that you do. So as a coach, as a business consultant, I'm also a keynote speaker. So, like in my keynote presentations, one of the things I like to ask my audience members is, what's one area of your life where your beliefs don't affect you? And then people go like this. They go, and I go, exactly. There's no place your beliefs don't affect you, right? Your beliefs affect your health, your well-being, your peace of mind, your mental health, right? It also affects your wealth, right? Your money, your finances, your business, your career, your job. It also affects your relationships, right? Your personal life, your business relationships, intimate relationships. So there's no place where your beliefs don't affect you. But the interesting thing is, you can't see a belief. You can only see the effects of a belief. And that's why you could be doing well in one area of your life, but maybe you're stuck or struggling in another. For example, maybe your health is really good, but maybe you're not making the money you want to be making, or vice versa. Maybe your business is going great, but maybe your health is suffering. So, it's not cookie cutter, one size fits all. It's a very customized, personalized approach that we have, whether it's one on one or group coaching or our programs. It's very customized for each individual. So that's the inner game. But then we also have the outer game. And so the outer game, and this is something that, I talk about in the Seven Figure Expert book, my new book, which is as an online business owner, right? And that's what I specialize in, helping people really grow their online business very quickly. We have to have the right offers, the right funnels, and the right traffic in order to really grow and compete in this hyper competitive marketplace that most of us find ourselves in. So when you put those inner game and outer game strategies together, that's when we're really able to see that hockey stick growth going up very, very quickly in a short amount of time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think people undervalue the inner game work until they realize how much the inner talk, the self-talk that we have, the belief systems, the, constant chatter that's going on is actually derailing them from doing the things that make a big impact. I know that was one of my biggest breakthroughs. Like, maybe
Mhm.
let's unpack that a little bit. And what are a couple of examples of inner game that you see over and over and over again are actually in people's blind spots, and
Mhm.
it's like the very thing when they shift that, it's like the floodgates open and everything they've said they wanted starts to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, we've seen this over and over and over the last 20 plus years, when people start to put this in place. So, when I look at inner game, that is absolutely where we start, with our clients, one-on-one group, or, in our online programs. It absolutely starts with inner game. Because think about it, when you're building your business, your career, your lifestyle, right? It's kind of like building a house, right? I mean, there's a lot of parts to it. There's a lot of things that go into it. But the problem for most people is that, for example, for entrepreneurs who really want to get to that multiple six or seven figure level, they're basically getting up every morning without a blueprint. Right? They don't really have a plan. And so if you're trying to build a house without a blueprint, it's basically like you wake up every morning and go, geez, I really need to work on my house today. I know, I'll just start slapping some boards together and hopefully a house will show up. Well, good luck with that. I mean, that's not really how it works. And so the point is that, you have to have the right plan so that you know what to do so you're not working so hard, right? And then you really need to have the right tool, right? So, when I started in 1997, there were basically no tools. If you can remember being online in the 90s, remember the remember the modems and stuff, and you could have maybe a picture, maybe 3 by 5 pixels on your website if you were lucky. And I mean, of course, there's no video or any of the amazing tools that we have today. But what's interesting is that it's just as hard sometimes for people to cut through the clutter, because nowadays we have too many tools. And so many of my clients, one of the things that we start with is they say, no, where do I start? There's just so much stuff out there, and they're on overwhelm because there's too many tools. So it's just as bad to have too many tools sometimes as it is to have not enough tools. Because when I started in the 90s, it was like trying to build a house with a rock and some sticks. So it was a little weird. And then you really have to have the right support. You have to have the people in your corner believing in you, and sometimes when you don't even believe in yourself, right? So sometimes believing in ourselves is, in fact, usually it's the hardest thing to do. So I'll give you an example of this, and how this can work. I was talking with one of my clients. His name's Charles, and one of the things that we start with all the time is, like, what are the things holding you back, and how much do you think it's costing you? So I ask people all the time. I mean, like, what do you think it's costing you to not have these systems in place for you right now? The inner game, the outer game, everything I talk about. And so I asked Charles that question, and he, without batting an eye, I said, "How much is it costing you?" Without batting an eye, he said, $1 million. No, if I don't get this in place this year, it's going to cost me $1 million. And I said, well, first of all, I hear this all the time. It's very common. People say to me, well, it's going to cost me $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 a month if we don't put this in place. That's 6, 7 figures a year, right? So I said, this is very common. And so I said, I tell you what, why don't you give me just 10% of that $1 million, and I will find you that $1 million in the next 12 months. In other words, if you give me $1 and I give you $10 in return, is that a good deal? He goes, yeah, that's a good deal. So he paid me that. He paid me 100K, which is 10% of a million, and to coach him one-on-one for 12 months. Well, in that 12 months, I didn't find him $1 million in 12 months. I found him 1.8 million in 10 months. And not only that, he sent me an email And he said, Noah, guess where I am? I'm on a 7 week vacation with my wife. We just bought a new RV with all this money we've got. I'm taking 7 weeks off. We're touring the Southeast. And he said, Noah, it's so amazing because now that we have these systems in place, not only do I have more money, but I have a lot more time than ever before. And isn't that really what we really want? We want more money. And yes, we also want more time.
I would agree. We want more money, we want more time, we want more freedom.
Hmm.
Those are definitely, common, goals there.
Indeed.
I wanna get into the outer game in a minute, but I just got
Mhm.
really curious as you were talking. Have you noticed a trend or maybe a common belief that people who are achieving these high 6, 7, even 8 figures, like, is there a common belief that they all share that gets them into those right behaviors?
Yeah, absolutely. And it really comes down to really understanding what it is that you want and then overcoming your own belief gap. Now, let me show you what I mean by that. So imagine that, you're here where you are right now. All of us are where we are, right? So whether you're making 5 figures, 6 figures, seven, or whatever you're making right now. And remember, we're not just talking about money, right? Money is just an easy thing to measure. I'm making X amount right now. So that's an easy thing to measure. But what's a little bit more difficult is talking about your level of fulfillment or happiness or peace of mind or whatever. Those are a little bit harder to quantify. We have a measuring system, method of doing that. But my point is that just looking at that outer goal that you might have. So you're here where you are, and then you want to get to where you want to be, right? So I call that your pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, right? That's your pot of gold. That's what you want to achieve. But see, for most people, what happens is the very next thought when they think about that thing that I want, people say, well, no, I want more money. I want to, write a book. I want to grow my business or sell my business. I want to, have a happy a marriage, happy relationship, whatever your goals are. I want to lose weight, again, not just money, but everything. And then the very next thought for most people is, but I don't think I can do it because, right? And then dot, dot, dot. And then you just fill in the blank. Well, I don't think I can do it because I don't have the time. I don't think I can do it because I don't have the money. I can't afford it. Right. I don't think I can do it because, my spouse won't let me do it. Or I don't think I can do it because I've already tried and I've tried a bunch of stuff and it failed. So, I don't think it's meant for me. So we have all of these things going on in our head. But what's fascinating about that is everything after the word because is what you believe and what you will defend to the death. So what's amazing is that we humans have an infinite capacity to make ourselves right, right? So if you're saying, well, I can't do it because XYZ, guess what? XYZ is your belief, and you're going to defend that to the death because for most people, it's more comfortable to be right. And so I often ask, my clients, whether one-on-one or group coaching, I say, would you rather be right or would you rather be rich and happy? And so a lot of people say, I think I'd rather be right. Okay, well, good luck with that. If you'd rather be rich and happy, let's put this in place and boom, hockey stick. Let's go.
I'll pick the being rich over being right any day.
Exactly. Exactly.
That it's I love talking about the inner game stuff. It's like
Mhm.
I could talk about it for hours.
Oh
It's one
yeah.
of my favorite subjects. But I also really find that the inner game and the outer game, like you said before, are just so intertwined.
Mhm.
What would you say are some of the unconscious habits of highly successful people?
Well, this is another thing that I'm known for. It's got, and I invented this, discovered this, created this many years ago called the Power Habits System. Now, the full name of what I created is called the Power Habits of Unconsciously Successful People. Now, that sounds like a mouthful, but let me just unpack it for you. And it's actually pretty simple. So, whenever we humans want to master a new habit, we go through 4 stages of competency. Now, the first stage is unconscious incompetence. That means you don't know. The second stage is conscious incompetence. That means you don't know. The third stage is conscious competence, which is you know. And then the final stage is unconscious competence, which is you do without thinking. Okay, so like in my keynote presentations, for example, if I'm speaking to companies or organizations around the country, around the world, whether virtual or live, one of the things I like to use is an example of driving a car, right? So I say to my audience members, how many people here know how to drive a car? Of course, every hand goes up. I say, well, did you realize that you actually had to go through those 4 phases, those 4 stages in order to learn how to drive a car? For example, the first phase is you didn't know how to drive a car, right? Nobody comes out of the womb and says, "Hey, where's my car?" Right? So you didn't know you didn't know. The second stage is you got to a certain age and you're like, "Hmm, I want to get away from my parents. And all I have is a bicycle. I can't get far enough away from my parents and a bicycle. So, man, I need to drive a car. Ah, shoot, I don't know how to drive a car. So now you don't know how to drive a car. And then you get to a certain age, right? And then you learn how to drive a car, right? You go to driver's ed. If you can remember, I remember going to driver's ed, right? And I remember, in high school and you're taking all these classes and stuff. And you're like, man, and in my case, we had this like, Buick, whatever it was, behemoth. It was like a city block long, and you're driving the thing like, oh my god, I'm in another area code, the back of this car, and so it was really hard to learn. And you're like, I hope I don't hit everything or anyone, or
Or parallel park that behemoth, right?
exactly. And it's like, holy cow. Anyway, so but the point is literally that's what's happening in your brain. Your brain's actually going crazy because like, there's so many, new things coming at it. But then of course you over time you master this new habit. And now for most of the people listening to the program, of course, you drive a car unconsciously, right? Meaning you do not think about it. When you're driving, you're thinking about 27 other things, but you're literally not thinking about this thing that used to be really, really hard. So what's interesting about that is, there's dozens or maybe even hundreds of things that we do every day that we really don't think about. Well, what I discovered after, an insane amount of study and experience and, coaching people from all around the world for the last 20 plus years, I realized that highly successful people, right, we call them the naturals or the one percenters, are doing these power habits unconsciously. That means they don't even know they're doing them. And therefore, number two, so number one, they don't even know they're doing them. And number two, that means they can't teach you. Because if somebody doesn't know they're doing something, how could they possibly teach you how to do it? The answer is they can't. And that's why so many people come to me and hire me, whether it's one on one or group coaching, they hire me after they've gone to all the seminars and all the gurus out there. And they're like, how come I'm still hitting the ceiling? How come I'm not breaking through? And I tell them, well, because they told you the 20% that was the conscious level, they left out the 80%. And it's really more like 5 and 95, right? So if you think about the iceberg, right, the iceberg principle of human behavior, only about 5% of our behaviors, thoughts, and actions every day are on the conscious level, like the top part of the iceberg that you can see. But the vast 95% is below the surface. We don't even know we're doing it. And so, what I always say to my clients or my audience members is, it wasn't the 5% of the iceberg that they could see that sunk the Titanic. It's the 95% that they didn't see that sunk the Titanic. And that is what is sinking a lot of people right now.
Hmm. I'd love if you could just give us even one example of an unconscious habit that you witness in highly successful people.
Yeah, well, that goes to my Afformations method, right? So Afformations, as you mentioned earlier, that is one of my methods that I'm known for, and it really is about changing your unconscious questions, right? And so, just very briefly, so everybody knows what an affirmation is, right? If you ever read a self-help book, they all say the same thing, right? Use these affirmations, put them in the positive, And I like to do this with my audience members too. I like to play a game. I say, all right, everybody, now we're going to say affirmation, a statement, just like they told us to, and I want you to see what happens. So they say, okay. And so I say, all right, everybody say, I am rich. And everybody goes, I am rich. You know what happens next? Everyone starts laughing. And I go, what are you laughing at? And they go, well, I'm not rich. And I say, but you just said you were. And they go, yeah, but I don't believe it. See, now isn't that the problem with that old method, right? We say these positive statements, we want to believe them, but we just don't believe them, right? In fact, a study was done, believe it or not, a study was done of this very topic, and they found that 75%, get this, 75% of people who use that old method, the affirmations method we've been taught for, well over a century, literally end up more frustrated than before. So imagine if you had a phone that didn't work 3 out of 4 times you tried to use it. You'd probably get a new phone, right? Well, that's what I invented 25 years ago, is a new phone, right? A new phone for your brain. So anyway, my Afformations method is, instead of using these statements that we don't believe, I'm happy, I'm rich, I'm successful, and your brain goes, no, you're not, right? Now, what I invented is the Afformations method. And by the way, I'll just spell that for you so you know what I'm talking about. This is my Hay House book called The Book of Afformations. So it's Afformations, Afformations, and you can Google that or just go to afformations.com and learn more about it. But anyway, so Afformations are empowering questions that immediately change your subconscious thought patterns. And so instead of saying something like, I am rich, which your brain goes, yeah, right. Using my Afformations method, we would ask something like this: why am I so rich? Why am I so rich? Now, instantly, your brain has to search for the answer to the question. In fact, it's actually called the embedded presupposition factor of the brain. It's just a fancy way of saying when you ask a question, your brain searches for the answer, right? So, what I realized many years ago is that highly successful people, right, the naturals, going back to my power habit system, this is the foundation of their beliefs. Now, they don't know they're doing this, so they could never teach this to you. So I'm the nerd, I'm the nerdiest nerd in the industry who broke it down, systematized, and say, here, how about the rest of us can do it now too? So my job here is to raise humanity's consciousness one question at a time.
Hmm. Well, that's such a great example, and I've used your affirmations for years, and they are very powerful. So, I think it's one of the success habits that everyone needs to adopt. We started by saying that there are four focus factors
Right.
that you teach people about the seven-figure life. I just want to, if you've covered some of them already, maybe can recap them or at least bring them to the focus or to the moment right here, because
Mhm.
I think focus is one of the most powerful success factors, but also the hardest for some entrepreneurs to
Yeah,
tap into. So I would love to
absolutely.
hear what they are.
Oh, absolutely. This is like 9 out of 10 people who come to me. This is their number one issue, problem, struggle, which is focus. And why is that? Is it because people are not motivated, they're lazy? No, that's not what I believe. I believe the point is that we live in a world of infinite distractions, right? And all these social media companies and platforms, they have people on staff whose entire job is to make sure that you and I stay addicted to these platforms. I mean, that's their entire job because that's how they make money, right? They make money by their algorithm and to addict you, addict me, addict all 8 billion of us so that they can make more money through advertising. So it's not like they're on your side, they're not on our side, right? Anyway, so I want people to realize that, hey, just because we live in a world of infinite distractions doesn't mean it's good for you, because it really isn't. Anyway, so looking at the four focus factors, and this is one of the things I talk about in my book called The Seven Figure Life. So we have the two companion books. We have the Seven Figure Expert and the Seven Figure Life. So they're like companion books. But in the Seven Figure Life, I talk about the four focus factors. Now, let me give you an example to show you how it works. It's actually fun. This is another thing I like to do in my keynote presentations. So I like to say to my audience members, okay, I tell you what, let's play a game. Now, the game is I'm going to give you $1 million right now. Everybody goes, okay, sounds great. I say, there's just one catch. And I go, all right, what's the catch? I said, okay, I'm going to give you $1 million, but you have no time to enjoy it. All right. So you have to be working all the time. You have way too much to do and too little time. You have no time whatsoever. You got to work all the time and not see your family and, just work all the time. So you have no time. All right. Sound good? And you're like, and those people are like, well, no, that doesn't sound that great. Not really. No. Okay. I'll tell you what. All right, fine. I'll give you $1 million and you have to be sad, depressed, miserable, and angry all the time. Sound good? No. All right. I'll tell you what. Fine, you're driving a hard bargain. I tell you what, I'll give you $1 million, but you just have no relationships. All right, so you have no people to enjoy it with, no friends, no family. All right, and you have absolutely no one to enjoy this money with. Sound good? No, right? See, none of that sounds any good. Right, so this is how I showed people through that example. Of course, everyone's laughing. I showed them through example that no, money is great, it's wonderful, but it's not enough, right? And so that's why the four focus factors that I show you and that I teach are the time, energy, relationships, and money. And so the point is that when you have an abundance of time, energy, relationships, and money, that's when you're living a happy, wealthy, successful life. If you don't have an abundance of any of those factors, well, something's going to be off in your life or in your business. I'll give you a quick example of that from another client. Her name is Aubrey, and she had spent lots of money, going to all these different seminars, and she was working really, really hard. Have you heard of the phrase "working yourself to death"? She was
Oh
actually
yeah.
doing that. She was literally working herself to death. She was working 14, 16, 18 hours a day, and she was working herself to death. In fact, she had to actually put herself in a wheelchair. That's how hard and long she was working. But she had had no growth in her business for 15 years. 15 years working like crazy, no growth. So, her doctor said, you can't do this. You're gonna work yourself into an early grave, but she didn't know how to stop. So she came to one of my events, hired me as her coach, and I helped her put these systems in place. Not only did she stop working so hard, her business actually doubled in 1 year after 15 years of no growth when she was working like crazy. So that's an example of having more money and winning your life back.
Mm, great example. I'd love it if we could share where people could get the Seven Figure Expert book because, I mean, such a powerful thing to be able to experience. So everybody's going to want to get their hands on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's actually very easy to remember. Here it is. Here's the book. It's called The Seven Figure Expert: Your Ultimate Guide to a Life of More Impact, Influence, and Financial Freedom. And so, because you're watching this or listening to this program right now, the book is actually free. So I've covered the cost of the book. We just ask you to cover the shipping. So hope you like that. All right. So it's very easy to remember. It's sevenfigureexpertbook.com. Easy to remember. Seven, the number seven, or you could even type the word seven, doesn't matter. Sevenfigureexpertbook.com. The book is free. And we just ask you to cover the shipping. We ship anywhere on planet Earth. In fact, I was actually checking my orders the other day, and we got an order from an entrepreneur in Uganda who ordered the book. And I didn't realize it's incredibly expensive to ship to Uganda. But anyway, so yeah, anywhere, United States, Canada, wherever you are, sevenfigureexpertbook.com.
Ah, brilliant. And you're going to want to go get a copy of the book right away. Don't wait. Don't put it off. Don't think about it and go, oh, I'll do it later because you won't. You'll forget. Go grab it right now. We'll also link it up in the show notes for you. Noah, I like asking my guests a couple fun questions at the end of our conversation, just so people get to know you, the man behind the scenes of this amazing work that you do in the world. If you think back to the beginning of the trajectory of this business, what would you say is the boldest thing you ever did that has amplified the income and impact of your business?
Oh, that's very easy. I'd been in business for 10 years from 1997 to 2007, and I had spent a lot of money on all the gurus out there who gave me a lot of really bad advice. And I followed that advice, and I ended up $40,000 in debt as a result of listening to that really bad advice. And so I had to move back in with my parents, and I was working out of their basement at the age of 40. So try that on for size. Okay, so I had no money. I was, broke and miserable and whatever. And that's when I realized that I had to do something different, right? We all know the definition of insanity: do the same thing over and over, expecting different results. So I said, I got to do something different. And so I did something that was really hard for me. I mean, it was scary, very scary, which was I hired my first real business coach. And this was someone who had not only made a lot of money for himself, but more importantly, had helped other people become successful. And that's one of the things that I didn't do before, right? I was seduced by all these guys and the planes and helicopters and everything, and like all the money that they were making, but I forgot to look at, well, have they helped anyone else? And the answer was not so much. So anyway, this coach really taught me for the first time, how to make money online and how to be financially free. And so I started making money, paid off all my debts, moved out of my parents' house, and actually moved here to Ohio. And 3 weeks later, I met my beautiful wife, the woman who would become my wife, Babette, who of course you've met and is wonderful, and everybody loves her. So I mean, that one decision changed my entire life.
Mm. So, what I heard you say is it was the decision to invest in a business
That's
coach versus all the bright, shiny mentors.
right.
And,
Yes.
that might have felt a little scary at that time, having been in debt and having a lot of outgoing that you didn't see results from, but you trusted that kind of inner knowing. So, congratulations.
Yes,
It's
that's
certainly paid
exactly right.
off in spades.
Indeed. Yes, indeed.
Well, I'll be interested to hear your answer to this question. If you look back from today to the beginning, what's one thing you wish you would have done sooner because now you know how much it was going to positively impact your business?
I would have hired a business coach, a real one. One. I know I sound like a broken record, but somebody who would help other people, and that's one
Mhm.
of the things in this industry that is toxic. Is we have this, you know, this on social media or whatever, that these there's these gurus that are taking up a lot of the air in the room because they're great at getting attention for themselves. But there's no correlation whatsoever, and this is what I found out later. I'm answering your question. I found out a lot later than I would have liked that there's no correlation between someone who's great at self marketing and someone who's really great at coaching. Those two are very different skill sets. So unfortunately, I went to the shiny objects. They seduced me, and I certainly paid the price for that. So looking back, I would have said, "Hey, Noah, do your research. Have they helped other people? Look for case studies." And that's one reason on our website you've got hundreds of case studies, because I want people to realize this is a system. It's not about a personality.
It's interesting you bring this up, and I love that it was the same answer for both questions because I would have to agree. Hiring the right coach
Mm.
And I use the word coach, and you use the word coach, and I want to draw a distinction that I learned many years ago that I think is very powerful. There's a difference between somebody that can mentor you on what they did and somebody who's trained to coach you on how to be successful
Mm.
authentically in what you do because
Mhm.
they know something that works. And most people hire the shiny marketing mentor when they really need a coach.
I would agree totally.
Yeah, I thought you might. So, great example of what the payoff of having the right coach in your
Right.
business. So, Noah, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope as you're listening in that you have already gone and ordered your book, sevenfigureexpertbook.com. I've known Noah for a very long time, and the work that you're doing in the world, Noah, is so extraordinary. You're shifting paradigms, you're providing real accessible tools, and I am for one, grateful for the work that you're bringing to entrepreneurs all over the planet. So thank you. Thank you for being here today.
It's my pleasure.